Hello everybody, this is Jain coming out with a new video. So today we're going to learn about saving systems. So basically, if you quit your game and you want to play it again, you basically want to start off from where you left rather than restarting everything. So today we're going to learn how to save your game. So basically, there are a couple of ways to do it. One way is to give the user an option like a save button where you press save and it saves everything. And another technique is to save autosave. Basically, whenever you move the system by itself, automatically saves it, which is a very natural way of doing it in RPG games. So, first of all, we're going to start off by learning how to save our player's position in the file system. So basically, what happens is, what I'm planning to do is every 3 seconds or 1 second or every interval of time, I'm gonna save the player's position into the file system, and once we start up the game, we're gonna read that position that we left off from last time, and it's gonna stay over there. Okay, so let's get started to make this code. So first of all, you're gonna go to your player, and we're gonna create empty, and we're gonna create a database. So this is where we're gonna save all our data, and we're gonna drag it into player, and we have our database 00000, and we're gonna say apply on player, so that it actually applies the prefab. So on database, you're gonna add component database, a new script called database, and it's gonna be C#. And let's go ahead and program. So the way it's gonna work is we're gonna save every 60 frames, or every, let's say, 120 frames. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say int interval. So this is in terms of frames. So basically, if this is 120, we're gonna save once every 120 frames. So frame is basically, I think, you run a normal default frame per second is 60 frames per second. So this is basically 2 seconds. So it's gonna save once in 2 seconds. So, and then here we're gonna have an int count. So this is gonna keep track of which frame it is going on. So what's gonna happen is we're gonna say count is equal to interval, or we actually don't need that yet. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say if count is equal to interval, we're gonna save. I'll explain what this is. So basically, as you see, count, I might actually, yeah. Count is used to record which frame it is. So at frame 0, count is going to be 0. When it goes to frame 1, it's going to increase count by 1. When it is frame 2, when it comes, see, you can say update is called once per frame. When it comes to frame 2, count is going to be 2, because count plus plus means count plus 1. That's what it means. So it increments itself by 1. So when there are 120 frames, count is going to be equal to 120, which is interval. So once it is equal to 120, it's going to save over here. We're going to write some methods to save, and then it's going to reset count to 0. So this way, it's going to save every 2 seconds. We can see it in action, debug.log, save. So we can see if it's working. So as you can see, it's gonna reoccur every 2 seconds. So every 2 seconds we're gonna save. Okay. So now we're gonna make a method to save void save position. So we're gonna use this method to save the position and to write to the file. So to basically save something, you need to write it to the file. and we're going to use player pref for that. I'll explain that what it is. So player pref is basically a class given by Unity, and it helps you to write to files. So the way it works is you're going to say player prefs dot set float. So as you can see, you have a set float and you have a string key and a string value. So you give it's like a variable. You give a key which is a variable name and value which is its value. So you can set float, and we're gonna say the value is x, and we're gonna say the value is of course the player position, which is over here. But now we need to access this position. So what you're basically gonna do is you're gonna go to our click to move script, and we're gonna make a static variable called public static vector3 current position. So this static variable, when you have a public static in the script, you can access it from anywhere. Now this is not always good to use. You can only use it if you're gonna have the scripts only made once. For example, click to move, it's only made once, so it's fine. Oh yeah, over here. Let's just comment this out for a second. So the reason we can use static is because click to move is only instantiated once. It's not, see, as you can see, it is only in the whole game, it is only instantiated once, so it's okay. So we have the current position, and in update, what we're gonna do is we're gonna say current position is equal to transform dot position. So it's recording what the current, not cursor position, current position. So now that we have the current position over here, we can go back over here to our database class, and we can say player prefs.set float x, comma, and then we say click to move dot current position dot x. So now we're saving the x position. Now, whoops, sorry about that. Now we can do the same thing for y and z. So we're going to change this to y and z. Y. So now, as you can see, we're setting x, y, and z to these values. And what we're going to do is we're going to say save position. Okay. So now let's try if they actually save. Well, we can't really check it, can we? But we're just gonna check if there are any errors. So there are no errors. So hopefully it is saving correctly over here. We're gonna get to know in a moment. So now now that we save the position, we want to read it when we start the game again, so we start from the previous positions. So now once I start the game, it's starting from the old position, but what I want is I want it to start from the position I left. So you're gonna go to our start over here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna say transform that position is equal to, actually we're going to go back to database, and we're going to make a public static vector3 get player position. Okay, so static means we can access it from here. So what this is going to do is it's going to read from, now here we write, it saves. Here we're going to read, we're going to say read player position, so our script can access it. So we're going to make a new vector, vector3 position is equal to new vector3. And then what we're going to do is position dot x is equal to player prefs, whoops, is equal to player prefs dot get. This time we're going to read the string. So we're going to say get. No, it's actually float. Get float. And we're going to get x. And we're going to do the same with Y and Z. These weird things mono develop do sometimes. Okay, so now we're setting the position X, Y, and Z according to what it was. I'm gonna say return position. So basically it is giving back the position, and what we can do over here is we can go back and we can say transform dot position is equal to database dot read player position. So now it's reading the position. And hopefully it works. So now we start off over here. I'm gonna move over here. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna start again. And as you can see, it starts from where I stopped previously. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start to record some other components like enemy health. For example, when we go and play our script and we hover over our enemy, we lose health. The enemy loses health every time I attack. So what we can do is we can save this component so the next time we start, the enemy is from the health we left, so we don't need to start all over again. Because now if you see and we play, the enemy is full health again, so that's a problem. So this time the technique we're gonna use is instant. So basically, the moment we lose health, we're gonna deduct it from the database. So we're not gonna do an interval system, but we're gonna deduct the health in the database instantly. So now the problem we have is if you have multiple enemies. So example, we're gonna duplicate and duplicate. We have 3 enemies now. Now all of these enemies have health, and we need to differentiate between these health. So to differentiate between these health, we need to assign IDs to each mob. So each mob has their own ID. Whoops. Now there are 2 ways you can do any way works. I think the second way is better, but what we can do is we can go to the mob script and we can have a public int ID, and we can go back and for each mob you can set your ID manually 0, 1, 2. That is perfectly fine, but it might be tedious. So and you need to make sure that you assign each mob a different ID. But what you can do is you can let the system do that for you. Let the system assign IDs for you. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna have a public static int assigner. So this is the int that is gonna assign the ID, assign the mob an ID. So what's gonna happen is we're gonna say we're gonna have a method called void assign ID. So this is basically gonna, let's not call it assign, let's say give ID, or yeah, or let's actually call it assigner. I like assigner. Assigner just basically means assigning something, giving someone something, just in case. And so we're gonna assign this ID. So we're gonna say ID this.id. So the ID of this mob is equal to assigner. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna say assigner plus plus. Now, so what happens is you're gonna say ID is equal to assigner, and assigner plus plus. So every time a new mob is created, the assigner is gonna increment by 1, and therefore it's gonna set the ID to a higher value. So each mob has a higher value. This might not make a lot of sense now, but once I play it, it's gonna make sense. So now you see each mob has ID 0, and we in fact need to call assign ID. We need to call the method so that it works. And now you'll see that every mob has a different ID. The first one has 0, the first one has 1, and the third one has 2. So as you can see, they have different IDs. So this way it's going to make it easier for us to save the mob's health. Nope. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to our database. We can have a public static void save health. Save mob health. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say which mob we want to save the health for. So we're gonna give its ID, and then we're gonna say what's the health, int health. So this basically is the identification of the mob, and this is the health of the mob. And then player refs dot set int. Is it an int or float? Health. Yeah, it is int. So we're gonna go back to our database, and we're gonna set int, and we're gonna call it mob health, and we're gonna say plus ID. So the way it's gonna say, okay, mob health 1, and the health of that is 100, because we know that the ID is 1, which is over here, and the health is 100. This is something we're defining all by ourselves. This is our rules. You can put mob health, you can put monster edge. This is all our rules. This is basically calling the variable, and then you're gonna set its value. Okay, so now we're saving the mob health. Now we want to read the mob health, so we're gonna say public static, and it's gonna return an int because we want the health of the mob. We're gonna say read mob health, and we're gonna give it identification, so it needs to know which mob should I read. So it's gonna say I want the mob of ID 2, and give me the health of mob ID 2. So we're gonna say return player prefs dot get int, and we're gonna say the same thing over here. So it's gonna return the mob health of ID whatever we ask for. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back over here, and because those all are static, we can access it from anywhere. And the reason I'm using static is because we're gonna have only one database. Never use yeah. So we're gonna go over here, get hit. We're gonna say database that save mob health. Actually, it's gonna be at the end of the method, and we're gonna give it ID because we need the identification, and we're gonna give the health. Okay, and now once we actually start, we need health is not equal to max health now, but health is equal to database dot read mob health, and we're gonna give it ID. And in fact, we're gonna read it after we assign the ID, because that is when we get the actual identification. But we have one problem. What if this does not exist? What we're gonna do is we're gonna say if, because what can happen is once we start the game, we never wrote the mob's health, so this variable does not exist in the database. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say if player prefs dot has key. This checks if it's existing. If it has this key, we're gonna return else. We're gonna return -1, and -1 is a sign basically saying that we actually there is no such key. So we know that when this method returns a -1, it means that it does not have the key. So here we're gonna say int temp database health. So this is basically the health we get from the database is equal to this, yeah? So we're going to read the health, and we're going to say if database health is equal to -1, we're not going to do anything because it does not exist, because we say If it is -1, it means that the database does not have this key. So it's not going to do anything. But if it actually has the key, we're going to set our health to the health we got from the database health, which is database health. And hopefully this works. So we're going to drag onto one of them. We're going to remove some health from there. And on the second one, or it's a little hard to, yeah. Let's get one of them really low. Oh, this is the middle one. It can sometimes get hard. And okay, so we're gonna stop, and we're gonna play again. And as you can see, once we start, they're already low. One of them is high because we never attacked it, but as you can see, they're already low. So that is how you can save mobs, different enemies' health, and continue on from there. So if you guys like my tutorial, please go to my Facebook page. The link is in the description below. Please like the page. It'll be a huge favor to me. That is all I ask in return for this tutorial. And also my tech demo is coming out on the 31st of July of my own game. And I would really recommend you guys to check it out and try the tech demo on 31st. And all the updates are going to be on the Facebook page. So I'll give a link in the description below, and please check it out, guys. It'd be a huge favor. That's all, guys. If you like the video, please share, subscribe, and like. And a lot of people have been asking for the Diablo 2 series to the 2D series to continue. So I'm gonna actually continue that again because people are just simply asking for it. So there you go, guys. Have a good evening, and bye bye.